Welcome to Informatica Cloud 201 on-demand course, Informatica Cloud Advanced Properties, Primary Key Chunking. Upon completion of this module, you will be able to understand what is PK chunking, discuss when can we use PK chunking with the help of an example, and discuss the PK chunking header. Let us now discuss what is PK chunking. PK stands for Primary Key. PK chunking is a new feature enabled by Salesforce for its Bulk API. In Informatica Cloud, it is available for bulk API tasks which use Salesforce API version 32 or above. This feature is enabled and configured on the Schedule tab of the task. As you may know, a database table's primary key is the object's record ID and is used to uniquely identify records in the table. Primary key is always indexed. If PK chunking is enabled, then bulk queries are split on very large tables into chunks based on the primary keys of the queried records. Each chunk is processed as a separate batch that counts towards your daily batch limit, and you must download each batch's result separately. You must specify the size of the chunk while enabling PK chunking. This feature allows a query to fetch large amount of records for each batch job run, so PK chunking enables massive jobs to run without timing out. The chunking of records is done with the help of SOQL queries. PK chunking provides improved performance as there is very little manual intervention. You simply enter a few parameters on your bulk API job and the platform automatically splits the query into separate chunks. It also executes a query for each chunk and returns the data. So when should you use PK chunking? Salesforce recommends that you must enable PK chunking for objects that have more than 10 million records. A typical use case could be, let's say that an organization has more than 10 million records which need to be transferred from a Salesforce org to their on-premise database tables. The organization faces connection issues and the DSS tasks time out while transferring the records. The organization has a Salesforce org connection with an API version of 32 or higher in Informatica Cloud. This is an ideal situation when the organization can enable PK chunking for their Informatica Cloud org. So as a solution to the business issue discussed in the earlier slide, now understand how PK chunking helps to fetch the data in batches. If there are 10 million records in Salesforce and if PK chunking is enabled with a chunk size of 25,000, then the bulk queries sent to Salesforce would have a where clause based on the primary key of the table. Each query will then fetch a maximum of 25,000 records. If the normal query is select name from account, then with PK chunking, the queries would be as shown on your screen. Let us now discuss about PK chunking headers. The Salesforce Bulk API includes two new request headers. One of the headers lets you enable automatic primary key chunking for bulk queries. PK chunking header is added while creating bulk API jobs and not batch jobs. The syntax to enable PK chunking feature is sforce enable PK chunking. This is mentioned in the PK chunking header. This command also has certain fields. Some of the common field values are true. It enables PK chunking with the default chunk size starting from the first record ID in the queried table. False. This disables PK chunking. If the header is not provided in the request, the default is false. Chunk size. This specifies the number of records within the ID boundaries for each chunk. The default is 100,000 and the maximum size is 250,000. If the query contains filters or soft deleted records, the number of returned results for each chunk could be less than the chunk size. Parent. This specifies the parent object when you're enabling PK chunking for queries on sharing objects. The chunks are based on the parent object's records rather than the sharing object's records. For example, when querying on account share, specify account as the parent object. PK chunking is supported for sharing objects as long as the parent object is supported. Start row. This specifies the 15-character or 18-character record ID to be used as the lower boundary for the first chunk. Use this parameter to specify a starting ID when restarting a job that failed between batches. An example of a PK chunking header can be sforce enable PK chunking, chunk size is equal to 50,000, start row 001300000x EFTMGH, parent is equal to account. Let us now discuss various utilizations of PK chunking. PK chunking can be used for most standard objects and all custom objects in Salesforce. This helps jobs run more efficiently because of the smaller chunks of data being run with each bulk API batch. If a job fails while processing, PK chunking can restart the job from the point of failure. Let us now discuss what chunk size would be best to split the bulk queries. If the chunk size is small, then it will increase the performance and speed of the queries. However, there is a flip side to this. A small chunk size will take up more bulk API batches and may take more time to complete the job. To solve this issue, you can specify larger chunk sizes and this will result in fewer bulk API batches. However, if the chunk size is too large, it might cause the job to time out frequently and this will impact the performance of the job. So in order to find out the optimal chunk size for each dataset, you will need to experiment with the chunk sizes. Based on the number of records to be fetched, chunk sizes can be made smaller or larger. You should create different chunk sizes to find out which size is the optimal chunk size. However, you should note that the maximum chunk size should not be larger than 250,000. In this demo, we will create a DSS task to configure the PK chunking setting. Here, we will use the Salesforce data to be loaded to a flat file using an Informatica Cloud DSS task. It is recommended to enable PK chunking for objects with more than 10 million records. However, for the purpose of understanding the functionality of PK chunking, we will enable this feature to process 20 records only. Let us consider that you work in an organization where you have to deal with enormous amount of data. You have to insert or update the database with millions of new records every day. For this purpose, you can use Informatica Cloud to perform a data synchronization task using the Salesforce bulk and PK chunking option. Let us log in into the Informatica Cloud org. Make sure your secure agent is active and running. To create a DSS task, hover over Task Wizards and select Data Synchronization. To create a new data synchronization task, click the New button. Name the task Demo PK Chunking and provide a meaningful description. Select the operation as Insert from the drop-down list. Click Next. In the Source tab, select the active Salesforce connection. Single radio button for the source type and click the Select button for the source object. In the appeared window, select Contact and click the Select button. Click Next. To configure the Target tab, select your flat file connection and target object as contact.csv file. Click the Field Mapping tab to map all the target fields. Click the Auto Match button and then validate the mapping. A message saying the field mapping is valid and has no errors will be displayed. Click Next. In the Schedule tab, we will configure the advanced properties. To do so, scroll down to the Advanced Salesforce options. select the Bulk API option from the Salesforce API drop-down. Now in the Advanced Source Properties option, select the Enable PK Chunking option. Set the PK chunking size to be 10. You can change this size to any appropriate value between the range from 0 to 250,000. PK chunking is enabled for this task, so let us now save and run this task. To do so, hover on Save. Click Save and Continue to validate the task. A Saved Successfully message will be displayed. Then hover on Save menu again and select Save and Run to run the task. You can check the status of the task while it is running from the Activity Monitor. As you can see that task got executed successfully with 0 error rows. You can observe the chunking lines and queries in the session log. As you can see, there are 2 batch jobs created with the chunk size 10. This concludes the demo of Advanced Session Properties. You are now ready to take the lab exercise on PK chunking. In this lab, you will create a DSS task to insert Salesforce contact data to a flat file, enable PK chunking for the task, view queries and chunking lines in session log. A leading global trade and risk management organization provides a banking software that delivers financial risk management to the world's leading financial institutions. The organization is a market leader serving 2,000 banks and financial institutions in more than 130 countries. The business need was that the organization wanted to develop a comprehensive end-to-end data integration solution to more efficiently deliver the business objectives. They also wanted to migrate on-premise data to the cloud in an effort to consolidate activity due to ongoing company acquisitions. Finally, they wanted to integrate data from Salesforce.com to efficiently execute bulk API DSS tasks. The challenges that the organization faced was that they had to manage disparate call centers that operated independent processes. Due to acquisition of new companies, they needed to centralize administration and support. They also needed to overcome lack of transparency into the organization's own customers' contract terms, including assets and support. However, daily synchronization of all the data was nearly impossible. The organization used Informatica Cloud Services to address all the issues discussed so far. The Informatica Cloud unifies different Salesforce opportunities by account and blends different products, services, education, and support offerings. With the help of Informatica Cloud PK chunking feature, they could now run DSS tasks to fetch millions of records, process them, and write them to the target tables, so they were able to complete Salesforce migration in 1/3 of the time using fewer people. They were also able to deliver a single view of the sales pipeline by account and all products and offerings for a specific deal for every customer worldwide. This concludes Informatica Cloud Advanced Properties Primary Key Chunking. In summary, we understood what PK chunking is, discussed when we can use PK chunking with the help of an example, and discussed PK chunking header.